All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Chris Crenshaw, and we are live from the 704 once again for episode 245 of the 815 Exchange. And well. All right, let's see what we got here. We got UFC 314. Is Volko back on top? Spoiler alert, yes, he is. But we also had to talk about that Bryce Mitchell. Oh my gosh. That felt so good. That was a great hate watch. All right, that was a great hate watch. Entertainment. Okay, we got Coachella going on. We've got King Carson dropping. We're going to talk about that. NBA. All right, it is the last day as I'm filming this. All right, at least in the West. All right, there's still playoff positions on the line. So we will be talking about that a little bit later in the main event of the evening, as it is the last week of the NBA regular season. The last day, literally today. And of course, in the roundup, we got the Masters. All right, it's going on right now. All right, you'll know obviously by the time I get to that segment, and I will too. But did Rory get it done? Could he hold off Bryson? It's looking good right now. All right, it's looking good. He's lighting on the 10th hole right now. It's looking good. We'll see if he can hold on and didn't choke. But yeah, we'll see if Rory got that career slam. We'll talk about that. The Baharian Grand Prix was probably the most entertaining Grand Prix we've had this year. And it still finished about what we expected. But we'll talk about F1 and all of that. NHL, last day of their regular season coming up as well. We'll talk about all that. All right, all that throughout this. So as always, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you guys are enjoying the content. And as always, all right, everything you're looking for can be found in my description. Social media links, description, or in the outro if you make it there. All right, long form content, skip to wherever you want because we got timestamps embedded in the video and also in that description. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, with the watch tan from Dreamville, which was now a week ago. It's crazy. A week ago I was getting ready to watch J. Cole do what he does. But now we back here. And that's not a bad thing, guys, as we kick it off here with the fight game here at UFC 314 live from the 305. It's not a bad thing. And getting older is also apparently not a bad thing. How about Alexander Volkanovski breaking some curses, ladies and gentlemen? Breaking the former champion curse of not being able to win their belt back. He broke the curse of the 35 and up club being completely washed. However, he did leave a little bit of himself, even though he gets the UD here and reclaims his door in the top featherweight. As, of course, Ilya vacated to move up to 155. But, yeah, Volk is back on top. Volk is back on top. Well-deserved. It was a great performance. It was a great fight versus Diego Lopez. And listen, Diego's time might come. It may come. He may still be next up. Just not today. And just not tomorrow. And definitely not yesterday. So, yeah, Volk had it. Like I said, great matchup. I mean, absolute firefight. Absolute firefight. Probably a crazy image has probably popped up right here. If I can find it. It might be that double punch image because that was crazy. They were just trading shots. All right, this was one of those fights that probably shortens a career. In Volk, we don't know how much longer he's got anyway, but nonetheless, yeah, he took some damage. Both of them guys showed off a chin, even though Volk got a little bit, more rocked than, of course, we've seen him. But still, he came out. He looked like Alexander Volkanovski, the greatest featherweight of all time. He looked like that guy. So yeah, shout out to Volk. Back on top at featherweights. I did not see this coming. Okay, I did not see this coming. Paddy the Baddy. I knew Paddy was good. And listen, I know a lot of people, especially when a new hype train comes out, people are like very skeptical, especially if they have a big personality. Like, all right, he's probably a scrub. That seems to be the general disposition of the MMA community when we have this next hype thing that's a little bit more brash than usual. And that was kind of the sentiment with Paddy. People didn't really know how good Paddy was. Well, the greatest gatekeeper in the game is Michael Chandler. Iron Mike, whatever you want to call him. Big Mike. All right, the man, the human highlight reel. I know that's Justin Gaethje's name, but I got to also give it to Michael Chandler because he's the greatest gatekeeper of all time. He never has a bad fight. And he will always have moments where it looks like he can win the fight, but he's going to get either viciously knocked out, decision to death, or the crap beat out of him. He is the best gatekeeper because it will always be a banger. All right, and Paddy proves that he can possibly be elite, ladies and gentlemen, as he gets the win here. He knocks out, on strikes. Ref was like, no more. Takes out Michael Chandler. Paddy took out I was stunned. Not that I thought Mike was going to rampage through Paddy, but I did not expect just an absolutely dominant performance. Paddy was dominant. He beat the brakes off of Michael Chandler. There's no other way to put it. It was a dominant win. Now, Chandler probably at this stage is washed, to be fair. But for the GOAT gatekeeper, to knock him out, to take him out in this fashion, Patty, we got to give you your respect. All right, we got to give you respect. Whether at 170, 155, probably 170 because he was looking huge. Right? I don't think he can make 155 anymore. But yeah, Patty, I mean, just what a performance. All right, what a performance from Patty Pimblett. Yeah, he's legit. He's legit. Say what you want. All right, say what you want. He passed through the gate. Of course, there'll be bigger challenges, but yeah, he made a statement in Miami on Saturday nights. However, the most satisfying win of the night was not Volk getting his throne back. It wasn't Patty proving he's that guy. It was Jean Silva beating the piss out of Bryce Mitchell. It was the most satisfying ass whooping I've seen in ages. In ages. It was so satisfying. So satisfying. Now I know, Izzy, my boy Stylebender, he said Bryce was going to take it. I wasn't too convinced based off of Bryce Mitchell's previous performances. I had faith in Silva, and Silva backed it all up. He backed it all up and beat the brakes off of Bryce Mitchell. Bryce did not look threatening at all. His big specialty, of course, is supposed to be his grappling, and Silva was out grappling him. There was not a facet of the fight game that Bryce Mitchell won. In the cage, out of the cage. He got worked in all facets of life, and it couldn't have happened to a worse person. It really couldn't have happened to an absolute idiot. I usually don't make any personal attacks and refrain for that unless you absolutely deserve it. And ladies and gentlemen, Bryce Mitchell showed his throughout this entire past couple months. Okay? Hitler's a good guy. All this, he's been like, no, you have been a horrible human being. So watching him get the breaks, all right, with a capital B, a capital R, a capital A, a capital K, a capital E, a capital S. Now, Bryce Mitchell probably can't spell or say what I just said because he doesn't have the brain function to do that. After Jean Silva beat the brakes, I want to reiterate, off of that man. And it was so satisfying. It was so deserved. So deserved. I loved it. I loved it. This is what I prayed for times like this. Okay? It was, oh my goodness, such a justified. He puts Bryce to sleep, chokes him out, which is again so fitting considering Bryce was supposed to be the supreme grappler. And yeah, that wasn't going to happen. Silva makes a statement, and fighting nerds might be dangerous, man. They might just be dangerous. Let's talk about the other parts of this card, though. Because we got some other interesting things happen, like Dan Inge getting a knockout victory. Shout out to Dan. Yair schooled Patricio Pitbull. Yeah, there was no other way to put that. Yair probably next up for that title shot against Volk. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the next matchup. Because but again, if Pitbull came over during maybe his prime years when he was like double champion Bellator, that may have been a thing. But yeah, Yair was just on a different level. He showed that boy levels. All right, levels in this fight. Good job from him. Dom Reyes is back, maybe? Look, the best we've seen Dom Reyes in a long time. He said he was going to come back better, not just back, and he did just that with a Conor McGregor-esque knockout of Krylov. All right, caught him on that same, like, check left hook that came so fast you probably thought it was a jab or you missed it. And yeah, slapped him. All right, it was a beautiful knockout. I think he got a bonus for that. So yeah, shout out to Dom. Back on top, all right? Well, not back on top like Volk, but, back in business, all right? That's the better way to put it. But he back in business, all right? We'll see what Dom can do with that. It's still kind of crazy that he should have probably been light heavyweight champion of the world. Again, that was a weird period. Even though John obviously went up to heavyweight and kind of proved that, he was still John Jones to an extent. That weird period where he definitely lost to Dominic Reyes and definitely also probably lost to Lionheart Smith was a crazy, that was a crazy era that they just kind of retconned out of history. But yeah, shout out to Dom for getting a win here and, hit a little Conor McGregor action right there. Let's talk about Ian Tito. All right, let's talk about entertainment, okay? Let's talk about music and Sally and music. We got it all this week, all right? I finally watched Nosferatu. Nosferatu with, Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the whole gang. It was good. I don't know if it was just like, well, but then again, I'm not the biggest horror fan. Not that I'm like not that it's like a scary thing. I'm not a huge horror fan. But yeah, I think it was still good. I think Bill Skarsgård is a insane actor. He's got that horror, like, he's got the horror game on lock. Like, if you need an antagonist, honestly, just for anything, if you need Bill Skarsgård to play some creepy, like, monster or like, he is the guy. He is the guy. All right, he is the best in the world at this. Okay, so yeah, I think he was a great Count Orlok and did a great job with that character, making him menacing and threatening. And yeah, they told a really good story of Nosferatu. So good stuff there, man. All right, good stuff. Again, those acting performances, Lily, ATJ, everybody did a really good job. Very well acting movie. Shout out to Robert Eggers, great director. And yeah, very good movie. All right, very good movie. Not like a 5-star in my opinion, but it was like a solid 4-star. It was a good, solid movie. If you're a horror fan, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. All right, I would co-sign that. Sinners comes out this week. We watching that this weekend. All right, I ain't even gonna lie to you. We watching that this weekend. If we do nothing else, we going to watch Sinners. All right, 100 debut on top. We there. All right, Ryan Coogler, MBJ, Haley, Josh Allen. That's been a rough press run for you, but yeah, no, we gonna be there. All right, we gonna be there. That's gonna be heat. We'll talk about it next week for 246. Carson. All right, Kenneth Carson. Kendrick Carson. Yeah, Ken dropped more chaos this week. And I'm gonna hold off on a rating. I definitely need a second listen. I definitely need a second listen to this before I give it a proper rating. I don't think it's gonna be my favorite Ken project, to be honest. I don't think it was better than the last one, but it was a solid project. He did his thing. People generally liked it. I think he changed some things up, which is necessary. But as I've said with all the Opium Boys, even though I think I like Ken more than I like Moon or even Cardi. Well, yeah, even Cardi at times. I think I like some of Ken's highs. None of them are like really these great supreme rappers, but of course you know what you're getting when you listen to an Opium artist. You're here for the rage. All right, you're here for the rage, and so much of it can get a little tiring, and I think there was a little bit of fatigue on this project, so I will say that. But Live Leak, Kryptonite, probably my two favorites off of first listen. But yeah, no official rating. It would probably be in that like 7-ish range if I had to guess. Maybe if I'm really rocking with it. It was a really good stretch during that period, during where like Live Leak and Kryptonite was. And that could maybe elevate it to the 8s, but I'm gonna say probably in the 7s. Not the worst thing I've heard, not his best, but something solid. All right, something solid from Ken. Friday Prayer. All right, AJ Tracey, Headie One, Aitch. I mean, with that list, with that 3, you knew I was gonna like it, and I did. All right, and I did. Probably my favorite of the new music I heard this week. All right, they delivered as you would expect. Headie, H, and AJ to do. So yeah, good stuff. H, I know is cooking something up. Seems like Headie is. AJ's got something. He's got an album coming out in like a month or two. So very much so looking forward to that. But yeah, all 3 of them stay hot with their ongoing rollouts. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, it is Coachella. All right, it's Coachella weeks. I was going to say Coachella Weekend, but I guess it's technically just Coachella Weekend 1. Because we got it again next week. All right, but it's Coachella season, festival season. Lisa bodied it. I don't know why y'all thought that was not going to happen. I'm going to be honest. There's been a big hate train about Lisa's performances and whether she can sing. And I was just like, y'all really thought Lisa, Blackpink Lisa Manable, Lisa Manaben, whatever you want, how you want, La Lisa. You thought Lisa was not going to show up at Coachella and body it. Are you insane? Are you not acquainted? Because you're clearly not tapped in the game. If you thought that Lisa was not going to go out and just body it. Of course she did. Of course she did. It's Lisa. All right, what are we doing here? What are we doing? She had a great set. Tyler's set. My goodness. I feel like Tyler could fix me. Respectfully. All right, respectfully. Tyler could fix me. Okay? She could fix me. She deserved a better crowd, though. But, I mean, that sometimes happens at Coachella. But, yeah, Tyler did her thing. Travis's set was crazy, as expected. With him getting the midnight set yesterday or last night or Saturday night for Coachella. So, yeah, he did his thing. I don't know what the rap game is, what their feelings are with Drake right now, because I'm seeing a lot of backpedaling, not saying that Trav was, hating, But I'm seeing a lot of backpedaling going on. I do find it very funny, though. I'll mention this very briefly during this segment. That Kendrick and SZA dropped the Luther MV as soon as Nokia was about to be number one. Which, by the way, for all intents and purposes, Nokia is the number one song in the country. It's just it has no airplay, which of course happens when you are beefing with your label. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, Nokia is currently the number one song in the world, but or in the country, in the U.S. But very funny that Kendrick was like, no, okay, no, the beefing will never end. All right, and I love it. I love it. They should never match up. All right, they should never patch it up. All right, too many lines were crossed. Gaga's set. She was one of the headliners. Bodied that, good stuff in there. Charlie kind of overshadowed Green Day, which I mean felt logical, but I get Green Day's legends in their own respect. But it's kind of Charlie's time, you know what I mean? And Charlie's built for Coachella, so no surprise that she bodied that. Yeet, I saw a lot of people going crazy for Yeet set, so shout out to Yeet. He had a very good set. Today we got Jenny, we've got Keshi, we've got I forget what the headliner is today. Okay, yeah, it's Posty. All right, it's Posty. It's Posty. It's Posty. Frank was Once Upon a Time, but they canceled that, so now it's Posty. Yeah, Posty, Meg, Ginny, Bia Badoobie, XG. We got some good ones today. All right, we got some good ones today. But yeah, Coachella been very good. I've heard a lot of people saying Coachella's falling off, but you know what? Celebrities still show up. They still make a load of money, and we still get some pretty solid performances. And honestly, they do the whole YouTube thing where we can watch it, you know, from the crib. So I'm cool with it. I'm good with Coachella. All right, I'm good with Coachella. It's on the bucket list, but I do not have the funds for that right now. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, that was entertainment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last Monday, was not just the release of episode 244. It was also the last day of college basketball for. I can't say the year, obviously, but for, the past year. Of course, we had Florida. We had Houston, all right? And it feels like this is kind of, come and gone since then. But anyways, I made my prediction. I said Florida was going to win, and, well, Florida won. All right? Houston literally pulled almost a replica of, on a much lesser scale, of course, of what happened in the Duke game in the Final Four of they just crumbled. They had the lead in this game, but then just could not score. Every deficiency this Houston team has, right? Lack of a superstar. Cryer and Sharp were not efficient at all. I mean, Florida matched Houston's energy in that second half. This was not a pretty national championship. This was not a great scintillating, really until that second half really kicked in. But that first half was rough. I'm not going to lie to you. That first half was some rough basketball, which, you know what? Is what Houston lives on. And that's why they were flourishing. Second half picked up, and they couldn't keep up. All right, they couldn't keep up. It did come down to the wire, though. And Walter Clayton, even though it wasn't a big clutch three this time, he did have a big-time turnover, or a big-time steal, should I say, causing a turnover on Houston that really kind of put this game in Florida's hands. And they weren't going to fumble it. All right, they weren't going to fumble it like Duke was. And ladies and gentlemen, the Gators are national champions since they went back-to-back in 06 and 07. Of course, with that loaded Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, and Al Horford big three. So, yes, congrats to the Gators. All right, a lot of y'all picked them. I picked them. So, yeah, not too big of a surprise. But, yeah, Houston, a little bit of disappointment. But they'll be fine. All right, like I said last week, they've got a loaded recruiting class. They will be just fine. Don't y'all worry about the Houston Cougars. Let's talk about the NBA. Because, first off, we had a classic here in Game 82, all right? Sometimes Game 82 matters, sometimes it doesn't, but we had an absolute classic between the Clippers and the Warriors, all right? The Clippers win in OT in what is not Oracle, but, I will always, similar to the Lakers, always call, even though it's a different, arena technically, always going to call it Oracle because it's just too iconic. But, yeah, they go on the road, they get it done in overtime because Draymond Green sold the game. I mean, the unction. We got classic. It felt like 2016 again. All right? We got Kawhi going for 33. We got Harden going for 39 and 10. We've got Curry going for 36. All right? Jimmy buckets. Playoff Jimmy came early. 30 and 9 for Jimmy. We look like we might have a tie ball game. They get the pass, get it inside. Draymond's open. And instead of going for the easy layup, he tries to draw a foul with Kawhi, puts up an absolute stinker, and the Warriors lose the game and have to go to the play-in. Literally through the play-in. through the play-in with 1 bucket. It was tragic. All right, that's the only way I can put it. It was absolutely tragic for the Warriors. With how hot they got during the stretch, to crash out like that is terrible. I got to give some kudos to the Clippers, though. 50 games with Kawhi and, Harden missing the time that they did. Norm Powell, I got to give a big shout out to, and Zubac for really holding it down when it was not pretty for the Clippers. But they get it done. They get that 5 seed. However, they do have to face the Nuggets next, which, with Joker in the playoffs and Jamal Murray in the playoffs, that can go a certain way. However, if the Clippers are healthy, I feel like they're dangerous. The West is wicked. So let's talk about what's the scenarios here. All right, let's talk about what we're looking at, okay? Of course, top 2 seeds in the West, as we know, Thunder, Rockets, that was set in stone. They were pretty clear, far ahead, at least, the Thunder, nonetheless. They won 68 games this year. Rockets, cool down, but they didn't really have too much to play for those last 2 games because they were already kind of wrapped up. So a little bit of resting going in there for the young Rockets. However, of course, their situations will be determined by the play-in, which we are looking at with this. The Mavericks and the Kings are going to be very interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. I feel like the Mavs need this. They need this. I'm not going to lie to you. They need this. We gonna see, but they need this bad. All right, they need a victory, a win. Nico Harrison needs it to get himself off of the hit list in Dallas. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, we also have Golden State and Memphis waiting. All right, waiting. We'll find out what happens there. Ja versus Curry should be a movie. All right, should be a movie. What day is that happening? All right, let me see what day we got that. We got that Tuesday. All right, so that's the first one. Perfect. That's gonna be cinema. But yeah, Ja versus Curry. That's why we had the play-in. All right, this is why we have it. I will say, I wasn't really rocking with the play-in when they first instituted it. I was like, yo, this is extra. Top 8 seeds make it, but play-ins worked out. But yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Grizzlies versus Warriors. However, Jimmy Buckets has been on a rampage, and of course that will determine, of course, who plays OKC, who plays Houston. But set in stone, we do have the Lakers and the Wolves. I would not overlook the Wolves in this. Would not overlook them at all. Of course, they went to the Western Conference Finals against Dallas, I believe, last year, correct? And with a lot to prove. Rudy with a lot to prove. We'll see what happens. Lakers, we can see if they can really show up here in the playoffs. And of course, like I said, Denver versus LA is going to be very, very, very interesting. To see, which one of the can the Unks get it done versus Joker, right? That's really going to be the story of it. Can they stay healthy? Can they bring it together? The Nuggets have sometimes looked low without Malone. Can they get it done? But they're one of the most, they got championship DNA, right? They have that championship DNA. Not that obviously the Unks don't with Kawhi, but Nuggets have been here. All right, they've been here. Been in the big moments here in the playoffs, so we will see what happens there. All right, we will see what happens there in the West. The East, the Cavs are the number 1 seed, but nobody respects them. I mean, getting absolutely no respect. Everybody's expecting Boston to get out of here. Of course, they are the top 2 seeds, both 60-win teams, second and third respectively in the NBA this year. Play-in though, we got Chicago and again. I feel like it's the same teams in the East, always in the play-in. Chicago, Miami, Atlanta. If Atlanta isn't, fighting for the lottery. It's literally those same teams every single year. I'm just saying, y'all are like stuck in this purgatory. But yeah, Miami versus Chicago, sure. We got Trey versus Orlando, which is going to be a lot of fun. All right, that will at least be entertaining. Just kind of seeing, Trey Young amp it up. I want to see Trey play more big-time basketball. Ricochet has been playing great. All right, Zach has been hooping. A lot of efficient off ball. Like, he's looking like the guy we think he could have been, even though he's probably not a number 1 pick worthy. But the contributor we thought he could be, the piece he could be for the Hawks, he's kind of turning into here late in the season. Orlando was a little bit underwhelmed for a lot of people, so we'll see. All right, we'll see what happens there. That should be at least very entertaining. Of course, winner of that plays the Cavs and Boston. We'll see what happens. Locked in, we do have New York versus Detroit. Okay. Kate Cunningham playing playoff basketball. Cinema. All right. Cinema in New York. Cinema. Could we see a superstar being born? Or is New York going to show that, hey, they're ready to make another run here, potentially to challenge the Celtics? And then we've got the Indiana Pacers versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is on one. Howie's been playing a lot. I think we're going to learn a lot about those 2 teams and kind of where they are just in general, even outside of any playoff run. just kind of what's the status of is this team getting closer or are they moving farther away? So that'll be very interesting. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the NBA playoffs, and that was the last of the NBA regular season. And actually, before I do that, let's look at the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, right? I'll do my kudos. The Jazz did finish with the worst record, so of course they'll be top of the line. However, the top 4 teams, same odds. So, Jazz, Wizards, Hornets, Pelicans. Those are your 4. With the best odds for the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. Now, of course, you got some trades, people owning people's picks. So things can change. All right, and of course, maybe Adam Silver makes some, business decisions. But we'll see. Like the Bulls have, so we'll see. All right, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that's the status of the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. But ladies and gentlemen, it's the NBA playoffs. It's about to get sticky. All right, it's about to get real sticky and real scary for a lot of y'all. All right, but with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the Roundup. And of course, kicking us off here with F1, alright, Baharian Grand Prix was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty good. And honestly, qualifying went great. Mixed it up a little. Of course, McLaren was still McLaren, but we did have some Mercedes mixed in there. We had some Ferrari mixed in there. Of course, there was a lot of steward work, so the Mercedes boys got dropped down a little bit, but nonetheless, alright, Max is not dominating. Which not to be anti-Max, but just, seeing Red Bull smoke everybody for the first half of the season, the last 3 seasons, it's nice to see a mixture here, all right? It's nice to see some variety, some parity. And we're still seeing that, all right? Because even though, like I said last week, Lando is supposed to be the guy. He's the championship favorite. But listen, Oscar Piastri is one of them ones. And y'all are starting to realize it. You're starting to see it in real time. He is a legitimate contender to win the world championship this year. This is not a mirage. This is not a, no. You got 2 number 1s, which was what I thought was going to happen when McLaren signed when McLaren signed Oscar, because Lando was already there. I was like, if Oscar reaches his potential, they put a good car out there, you're going to have 2 number 1s, and somebody's going to find out who they are. Who's really the guy? And right now, Oscar's cooking. He's been going back to back. We'll see if he can three-peat in Saudi Arabia. But for right now, he is the first 2-time winner this year. Not enough to take the championship lead because Lando was able to get a place. He was able to get to that podium, get that 3rd spot off of Charles. Does stay 3 points ahead, but Oscar is cooking. He's looking very, very dangerous. George Russell continues to be a model of consistency. He grabbed that 2nd, even though Mercedes fucked up Kimmy's. Kimmy showed some of the brilliance. Some of the overtakes he had in this race. Oh my goodness. It was like, yeah, no, this is why he's the one. But he also killed his tires a little bit, but Mercedes didn't really help him on strategy, so he does miss the points for the first time in his career. However, Ollie Bierman, his former Premier teammate, one of his very good friends here on the grid, did hold it down to that. Haas did a great job holding him off those last 10 laps. So shout out to Ollie. He gets points, double points for Haas, him and Ocon. What else happened here? Red Bull, not a great week, but Yuki does get points for them. So finally, the second driver gets points for the first time since last fall. All right, it was something crazy. So yeah, it was an entertaining Grand Prix. A lot of safety cars. Rough day for Williams. But yeah, cool. Last of the triple header next week before we get a little break. But yeah, Saudi Arabia, one of the fastest tracks. We'll see what happens. But that was Baharian. Oscar is on fire. Masters. Rory finally got it done. Finally. And he almost gave it away. That's the crazy thing. He almost choked so many times. It was like seeing a man have PTSD in real time. He almost choked Augusta so many times today. Bryson takes the lead early, but then Bryson just absolutely falls apart, takes himself out. Ludwig starts and he goes on a run, starts catching up. Justin Rose starts cooking in the back 9. Rory puts it into the water. So he loses a shot, gets it back, gets back up. Then, he's back in a groove, and Rose gets 11. And then on the last hole on 18, just has to sink the putt for the career Grand Slam, and he shanks it. Able to get the par, so he ties with Rose, sends us to a playoff, and luckily Rory locked in enough. Rose misses the putt, even though it was a pretty difficult putt. I'm not going to sit here and fault Justin Rose. He gave a hell of a performance. Shot a 66, all right? But it was not enough because Rory had enough in the tank, all right? He was not going to let up this time, and he does get the career Grand Slam and kind of marks himself amongst the legends. Nicholas, Player, Tiger, I'm missing somebody, and of course now Rory. So congrats to him. Long time coming. All right, it was his 11th try at this, getting the career Grand Slam here in Augusta. So, yeah, long time coming. We've seen Rory go from, teenage phenom to now 39-year-old legend. So, yeah, congrats to Rory. He marks himself as, which he already was, let's be real, but firmly as one of the greats to ever play the game of golf. So, shout out to Rory for getting that career Grand Slam finally. All right, NHL, last week of their regular season. Of course, last week, OV got the goal record. That's been a big story. However, I'm gonna give some shine to Winnipeg. All right, I know nobody wants to play in Winnipeg according to the player survey, but they are cooking this year. I'm not saying they're a championship favorite or winning the Stanley Cup, but I gotta give some flowers to Winnipeg. They're gonna win the Presidents probably this year. I forget if they won today. If they did, then I think they got it wrapped up. Connor Hellebuyck. If it wasn't for what the boys in Colorado are doing, like Kale and Nate, but Connor Hellebuyck is having a great, potentially even all-time great goalie season. I mean, a fantastic. He's got the Jennings and the Vezina wrapped up. All right, he is looking like the best goaltender in the world. So, yeah, we will see what happens for Winnipeg. All right, Kyle Connor cooking up, so on and so forth. Mark Scheifele. But they've been very good here in the regular season, and with Hellebuyck playing like that is, that's going to be a very interesting storyline to take as they are the number one seed out there in the Wicked West. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, shout out to Hellebuyck, shout out to Winnipeg on a great, great season in the NHL as they start to wrap up that playoff race in the and probably by the time you're watching this, honestly. WNBA draft is this week. Paige is going number 1. We have no idea who's going number 2. No idea. We could be going out of France. Could be back here in the States. Liv didn't go, so we don't know. Could be Sonya. Nobody knows. All right, nobody knows who's going number 2, which is kind of exciting. All right, not as deep of as a draft as last year, but Paige going to Dallas set that in stone. Her playing with Enrique will be fun, and seeing kind of where everybody else kind of that balances out. Some big time transfers going on right now, which brings me, of course, to college football. Yes, we're talking about college football in April. And I'm not talking about a spring game. No. Like I said, I'm talking about the portal because Nico. And I'm not talking about Harrison. I'm talking about Amalavia. Asked for $4 million allegedly from Tennessee, and they said, hell no. They said, go hit the door. He sat out the practice, by the way. He was at practice for the whole spring, but the practice before the spring game says, I'm going to hold out. Which, listen, I'm all for player empowerment, and I'm all for, these college players who are getting their paid dues. But there seems to be a lack of social awareness here, and then just of this is where we've reached that point where this is getting out of control with NIL. It is incredibly brash, in my opinion. Incredibly brash for Nico and his family to think that they can pull something like this. It's borderline insane. To ask for $2 million more in NIL off of what? If he'd won the Heisman, if we're talking about Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams, or somebody that stood out in that freshman year or that first year starting and is looking like they're going to be a prime top prospect coming out in the next 2 years, one of the premier stars of college football, that's another thing. But let's be real, and we talked about this during the season. Nico didn't really look like that guy. Sorry. Besides his reputation and him, 5-star quarterback, supposed to be the heir apparent at the tennis in Knoxville, he didn't really look like that guy. He had moments, but overall, 19 passing touchdowns, 11 picks is not really moving me. So for you to ask for superstar money, and you're not a superstar, and I got GMAC, 5-star quarterback just came in, I got Merck sitting behind you already, and hell, I got the number 1 player in the country in 2026, Faison Brandon, waiting in the wings. I don't need you. You're not bigger than the program. You're not. So I don't know what Nico was thinking because he had no leverage in this situation. And it's just, I don't know, ridiculous. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. A holdout in college? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Has to be. I don't know who told him or influenced him to make this decision, but it was mind-boggling. Because it turned you off of Tennessee, a potential playoff team, and now nobody wants you. USC, we don't want you. Notre Dame doesn't want you. Oregon doesn't want you. All of these teams don't want him. So I don't know where Nico's going to go. It's the spring already. So, yeah, just a really mind-boggling decision. I'm glad that Hupel and Tennessee stood their ground. Because, yeah, no, that's insane. A holdout in college is crazy. All right? Especially for a player of Nico's caliber. Absolutely crazy. You're not that guy. You're not whoever you think you are. Promise you. You're not, and we don't need you. This is not, you got no leverage in that situation. So, we'll see what happens there. But, yeah, crazy situation there in college football. But, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 245. But without further ado, Ultra signing off.